Hey, what's going on? Welcome to ngAir. I am your host, Justin Schwarzenberger. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about persistent state management using query params. So super interesting. You're going to find out about that. Let's get started. We'll say hi to our panelists, and then we'll meet our guests, and then we'll get the show rolling. Joining us today, we've got Mike Brocky. Mike, what is going on?
Not too much. Big Tuesday. No, Wednesday. I don't know the days of the week.
So, it is Wednesday. Yeah. This is when we have ngAir. It's Wednesday, right?
Hump day, yeah. Getting through it, right? Mike. Yo, Mike. What day
is it? That is how I know what day it is. Like if there's a podcast or not.
Oh man, we need that camel. That would be awesome. Alyssa, how's it going?
Going great. Me and Mr. Milks are ready to learn all about the query params.
Nice. And our guest today is Iliya. Iliya, how's it going?
Hello, everyone. It's going perfect.
Awesome.
We're here. Everything's perfect.
We are very excited to have you. Do you want to tell our viewers a little bit about yourself? Give them background, stuff like
that? Sure. So I kind of do a lot of stuff, but the main stuff that I do, I'm a co-founder of a small software company. It's called Hill Grant. This is our logo. And we pretty much develop web applications there. One of the largest applications that we're currently working on is a portal for monitoring and controlling off-grid and hybrid-powered systems. So it's something that it's really big and complicated, and it's like the largest Angular application that I ever worked on. So there are a lot of challenges, and we also have smaller projects. So it's pretty interesting. I'm also a Google developer expert for web technologies and Angular. Yes, it's very nice to be one. So what else do I do? I also teach in Sofia University. I'm a part-time lecturer in the advanced JavaScript course. And I also do a lot of private courses. I teach JavaScript, Node.js, everything just related to JavaScript, Angular, React. So pretty much I like to cover everything because I really love the different technologies and how they solve the problem that we're all trying to solve, how to write code easier. And yeah, I also do private trainings and teach in other academies. So just a bunch of stuff, really.
Very cool. Hey, I got a question.
Okay. I was just going to say today's going to be a little bit more public with the training.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I really enjoy to speak and to present to people. So hopefully I will do well. I just mentioned to Justin that for me, it's very complicated to like present stuff on my laptop this way because I kind of don't see the other people and I don't understand if they understood what I'm trying to show them, but I will try my best. So bear with me.
But the nice thing to keep in mind is while you might not get that immediate feedback, you could just assume that everybody got it. And if they don't, they could just rewind and rewatch it again.
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
I'll try to do that.
Hey, I have a question about the training stuff. So you talk that you do JavaScript stuff as well as Angular and React and things like that. Do you find challenges where you get into, okay, I'm teaching JavaScript versus Angular with TypeScript, and oh wait, that's a TypeScript thing, not a JavaScript thing?
I don't find problems when I'm doing this. The only problem is that I'm so used to writing TypeScript that when I start writing, I just put like the annotations and I write TS in front, like an extension for the file, and I'm like, oh man, I need to control myself. So yeah, and even like this week, I was showing some people some basic JavaScript, and it turned out that I forgot how to. I didn't forget, but I forgot how to write the link tag so I can load external CSS file. I was like, I forgot totally how to write this. I mean, I use Webpack for this. So yeah, automation is not the best thing. Like you kind of forget certain things.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one challenging thing as a trainer and teacher, right? Is like you got to be able to deconstruct that stuff and then pull out of your maybe developer mode where you're trying to solve problems when you're building apps and go back into this, okay, how can I extract out the other noise to focus on the part that you're teaching, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Living in worlds at the same time, then you're like, okay, I just taught, now I got to go write some code. It's kind of challenging, right?
Yeah. Especially if you've been writing all day and trying to fix something, and then you go and teach, and you're like, oh my gosh.
For sure.
I have a question already. So you talk about doing different trainings regarding Angular and just raw JavaScript / TypeScript. What we're going to be going over today with query params and maintaining state that way as the topic. Are we talking about this in the context of being framework agnostic? Because routes and query parameters is framework agnostic. So I'm just curious what context we're going to be talking about that today.
So we're going to be talking, of course, in the context of Angular. After all, it's ngAir, and Angular is my preferred choice of writing software in. But it can be used everywhere because from time to time I go and work on different projects as a consultant or contractor. I really find that people kind of forgot about query params, and that you can actually use the URL to store certain state for your application. And I really don't understand why people stopped using this. Like back in the days, we were using it all the time just because we had to send certain data to the backend. But nowadays, everybody just forgot about it. So yeah, this is why I want to like kind of mention it.
So query params, they're not just an Angular thing.
Query params are just like the parameters that you put after the path of your URL.
Because I was talking to my friend the other day about, I was like, he said, oh, we should do something like this. And I was like, oh, like with query params. And he was like, what are those? And so I just assumed that they were an Angular only thing and not like a JavaScript thing.
No, they're browser thing, pretty much the web thing. They're not React or Angular or anything. We've been using them since the days we wrote PHP.
Oh man, memories. I've been down that road. Awesome. All right, well, shall we dive into the topic?
Yeah, sure. So Justin, share my screen if you want. And just let me know, or I'm going to see actually.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and do the screen share at the bottom. And
okay.
And then it'll show up, and then I'll share.
Okay, screen. I'm going to share the entire screen. Hopefully, I won't show something that I don't want you to see. Perfect. So I guess you can see now, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the small library that I wrote, and pretty much I'm going to just quickly say a few words about it. Okay, so pretty much why do we need this kind of stuff, and why do we use it? So I really like when I'm developing or when we are actually developing applications in our company to kind of write the so-called deterministic user interfaces. So what is actually to be deterministic? Like if you check in Wikipedia, you're going to see that in computer science, they say that deterministic system is a system in which no randomness is involved in the development of future states of the system. And of course, when we're writing software, we cannot write fully deterministic software because we cannot write everything with pure functions, right? Just because when we are making a request to the server, it can either return certain data, or it can return an error, or it can return different data, even though we're making the same request because somebody made certain modifications and stuff. So we cannot write usable software without effects. But that doesn't mean that we cannot write like deterministic user interfaces. And my idea when I was actually writing this library, it was pretty much to have something like a Turing machine. So probably most of you know what a Turing machine is, but pretty much you feed the machine with certain inputs, and based on these inputs, the machine changes its state. So we can actually think about the URL here in our browsers as this input, and what we actually want to have as a result, if we enter this URL, to have the same state of the application. And yeah, pretty much that was the idea of developing this small library. And pretty much Angular out of the box give us the option to define root parameters, and we do it when we are listing our paths, for example. Pretty much we do a slash and we put the semicolon with the parameter that we want, of course. But there's not a way that we can actually define query parameters. And what we found when we were actually developing applications is that we really want to have persistent state, and what better ways to have persistent state than using the query parameters for that. But there are certain difficulties with this, and pretty much I had the idea of writing this library. And what we actually do is on the root level, when we are defining our roots, we use the data and we can actually define some certain configuration for this small library. And we can just show what kind of root parameters we're going to have for this particular root, and what kind of default values we're going to have. For example, if this root parameter is not set, for example, let's say page, we're going to have the value of 0. So we can actually think, if we are thinking about ngRx, pretty much this is going to be our initial state of our store. And we kind of need more logic, just because whenever we're talking about query parameters, we have a string. And what is cool about string is that they are immutable by nature, just because we cannot mutate strings, right? So this is a really big plus, just because we don't have to care if we're going to mess up something. For example, in ngRx, you need to always return a new object, right? But here you don't care. I mean, it's immutable by nature, so it's really cool. But there is another problem that, for example, if we want to store something in the query parameters of the URL, we're going to store it as a string. So we have to have certain ways to kind of convert this value to a certain format that is going to be more useful. And for example, by putting the type converter option, we can actually say that we want to take this value and convert it to a string, or convert it to a Boolean, or convert it to a number, or something like that. It's going to be more useful for us inside the applications, in our application. So pretty much these are the configurations here that we actually put. As I mentioned before, I'm going to quickly do a demo. So I'm going to kind of live code, so everybody can see how we can configure user interface. And after that, I'm just going to show some of the different options already developed, so I don't take a lot of time. For example, I'm not going to go through all of them now, but pretty much I hope that you're getting the idea. Any feedback? Is it kind of clear, or you have certain questions?
I got a couple questions.
Yeah, okay.
First of all, can I ask you to bump up the font or zoom in a little bit on that?
Yep. Is it okay?
Well, how about one more?
One more?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we got people to watch on mobile, and so it's a little bit smaller.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to try and kind of unpack this really quick, kind of from a higher level view, right?
Sure.
So you talked about the route parameters, right, and how we can define those when we define our routes, right?
Yep.
But with query params, we don't, right? And that's kind of the main goal of this thing, right? Is that with query params, we're talking about everything after the question mark in our URL.
Exactly.
We have a way to define that at the route level when we define our routes. So we end up doing things like reading that value maybe in a resolver or inside a component somewhere. And this is attempting to bring that at the route definition level. So we kind of have the same behavior as a route parameter, but a query param there. And then also to try and provide this logic and rules around these query params so that we have these fixed values, these default values, and all that logic can kind of be wrapped up into one spot for working with that, rather than separate it out and just randomly throughout our app, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. This is the idea. So you can actually configure if you want only these query params to be present in your URL or not. This is actually configured by this remove unknown. So if any other query param for this route is kind of met, that is not from these ones, it will be automatically removed. and same goes for if, for example, page size is something else than the values that we provided here. So it's if for example it's 100, it will be automatically removed, which is very useful.
Yeah, I really like this. I can see, because I find I've got myself in scenarios in applications where there's logic based around these query params, right? And there's rules,
Exactly.
rules and things like that. And to have that just segmented out throughout the app, it's hard to keep track of, or you get a new one that's added, right? It's like, where do you add that? This centralizes that into one spot where you're saying, look, these are all the business rules around query params and handling those. And it's you manage it in one spot. I'm assuming then you can test it in one spot. Like it brings that all together as one. So total use case I can see for sure.
Yeah, exactly. We actually use it in our applications, and that's why it exists, because it's very useful to us. And I decided that if it's useful to us, maybe it will be useful for someone else. So actually, it's still in kind of development mode. So that's why I'm kind of doing the episode. If there is someone who's interested in, I'm very open to contributions, so we can actually make this thing even better than it is now. But it's very useful. We're actually using it in production. Yeah, so pretty much this is it. And when we are actually talking about state management, we always kind of think about ngRx, right? But with ngRx, we have this extra logic that we have to write. We have to write reducers. We have to write unique strings for our actions. We have to write action creators and stuff like that. Here, we actually don't need those kind of stuff, just because, as I said, the only way that we are actually mutating the URL, this is when we're actually doing a navigation, and we don't need any actions for this. We just use the router.navigate, and we feed it with the query params that we want to change. And yeah, the best thing is that it uses RxJS underneath, so we can use our favorite streams. So yeah, it's really cool. So I think that I should jump into live coding just to show how we can actually create something with this. Is it okay?
Heck yeah, for sure.
I'm so
Okay,
excited.
so I'm going to boost the fonts here. Is it okay like this?
Yep, that was good. Thank you.
Perfect. So I just created this Angular application, and I already developed certain parts. I want to focus on the parts that are actually basically from the library, from the query param store library. So we have like, I'm just going to walk you quickly. We have the core module that we have like some navigation here. We have some guards for one wizard that I'm going to show later. So where we are actually going to start is from the users model that is actually lazy loaded. Here we can actually see it, that it's lazy loaded. And inside it, we have these routes that we're going to be actually configuring. So here we have a list. This is going to be the list of all users. As you see, I'm using Angular material inside, and there are certain parts missing that we're actually going to be taking from the user service. I'm just going to live code it. And we also have the entity component. The entity component is pretty much a component that is going to be in a dialog, and whenever we click edit on a certain row, we can basically open the dialog and we can edit a user or something like that. I'm not going to actually be editing stuff because I'm using a free API that's only that I can only get from. I cannot actually update the data, but I think that it will be I mean, it's easier to kind of customize it with
What's the API? Do you remember?
Sorry?
I was just curious what the API was.
I remember it because it's right here. So I use JSON placeholder. Of course, this is not the best way to actually use it. Of course, we can put it inside the interceptor and stuff, but I just wanted to keep things easier. So this is the API that I'm going to use. I'm just quickly going to open it. I use it a lot for demos, and it's pretty nice because we have pagination and we have a lot of things that we can use. So these are the endpoints here, and these are the endpoints. So I'm going to be using the users, and this is the data that we're going to be receiving. I'm not going to be using all the data, so pretty much I use the ID, name, and username, and email, I think. So the other data I don't present it, I don't use it, but if you're doing demos, it's really useful. You can just go to this domain and you can use it.
Cool. Thank you.
Welcome. So the problem here is, by the way, if you're struggling to know how to, for example, sort things and filter things and stuff, you just need to go to the I think to the guide or to the GitHub page, and there you can actually see a more detailed documentation about the API, how you can actually control it. For example, here, if I search for sort, then you can see like filtering, paginating, sorting, and other operations that you can actually do. So here's how our queries are going to be looking like. Okay, so let's go back to our application. I also here, as you see, we have like a user service. That maybe let's start from here. Probably it's going to be easier. So our user service. What is it going to be doing? So I'm not going to be using ngAir because I don't want to complicate things more. But I'm going to use something similar that I created. As you see, we're going to have reply subject for our list. These are going to be the users. And I'm going to have reply subject, for example, for the entity. This is going to be the user that I'm actually editing if I'm editing something. Otherwise, it's going to be no, I think. And we're also going to have these loaders for the different things, for the list and for the entity that we're going to be using while loading something to present a spinner or something. Okay, and what do we actually do here? Pretty much we get the data. So I developed this interface. This is called the iQuery data. So my idea is to have pagination, filtering, and sorting for this user dashboard that I'm going to be creating. And pretty much because I'm going to be using this query params, page size, filter, and sort, I have to kind of manipulate it so it can look the way that the API accepts it, just because it's not my API and I cannot control it. I have to create this like query builder, and pretty much it's not something like very hard. Of course, this code is going to be uploaded to my GitHub page, and everyone who wants to check it out can do it there. So pretty much here I create the query that it's needed for the backend. Okay, so this is our user service. Where did it go? And I think that it's pretty fine. It's not very complicated, right? So we load all the users here, and pretty much we load one of the users. And whenever we're doing this operation, pretty much we present the spinner, and we hide it when the data gets back. So I hope that everything's clear. So let's start using our user service. So the first part, actually, I'm going to start by configuring our query param store, and we're going to do this in our user routing. So here we have the default route for our list component. And as you see, we have already a resolver. So the idea of the resolver is basically to make the call for the users to get loaded. And we're going to do this on our next step. So here I'm going to define the data. As you see, I created these interfaces that help us kind of understand what kind of properties we can have, so we can configure our root params easier. Okay, so I'm going to say query params config, and inside here I'm going to use the default values. I have to rename this property because default values is not correct. I want something more meaningful, for example, like state, because it's actually going to be the default state or state configuration or something like that, because we actually configure certain things. But anyways, let's start with saying that we're going to have a query param that is going to be called page, and the default value is going to be 1. So pretty much I'm going to be, whenever I enter this interface, if I don't have a query param page, I want to have 1. So it's going to be the first page. Then I'm going to have page size. So page size, I want this to be a number. As I said, when we are using query params, everything is actually a string. So by giving this JavaScript constructor. As you see, this is not TypeScript. This is the JavaScript number constructor. We tell it how this value needs to be converted. So whenever we are actually using it inside our application, it will be a number, not a string. And I'm also going to say that I'm not going to have multiple values. This is something that I'm going to explain a little bit later, what that means. And I'm going to say that the default value, it's going to be, let me just put the allowed values. I use these page sizes that I created. Pretty much it's a constant. Here, there it is, with the default page sizes. So it's 5 and 10. And I'm going to say that the value is going to be the first one, which is the 5. Then we're also going to have a filter, so we can filter our users. So inside the filter, I'm going to say that the type converter is going to be a string. I also give it like the constructor, of course, multi-false. Certain like interfaces for these query params need to be optimized, so you don't have to write this, but this is another thing that I have to do. What else? So let's say the default value is going to be an empty string, and because the filter is actually going to, we can actually going to be filtering amongst like 3 columns. I'm actually going to say that multi is true. So whenever we want to have multiple values, we're going to, for a certain query parameter, we're going to say that it's going to be multi-true, and we're going to say that there's going to be a separator. This is actually the separator that we're going to have inside our query param value, which is going to be like, for example, this thing. So if you don't understand quite what this does, just bear with me. When we plug things and you see how they work, everything will be clear, hopefully, if it's not now.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that query params, by the nature of them being part of the URL, are already strings. So is it necessary to still have that type converter there to say, hey, convert this one to a string, even though it's already a string?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was actually thinking the same. So the problem here, I think, I have to double check. I'm not sure because I wrote it some time ago, and I'm not, I kind of forgot what I wrote. But I think the problem here is that we're going to have multiple values. I think that we might skip this. But one of the problems is, I guess, with TypeScript. So I'm just going to, just because I didn't develop the interfaces correctly. So I think that you can actually skip it.
Okay. You can put it there. I was just curious, just wanted to talk through it.
Yeah. I have to fix this. So yeah, sure. Like I'm going to say to do so I don't forget. I really have to do certain optimizations, but yeah, we don't really need this.
Well, before we move on, there's people watching right now, and people are going to watch a recorder. If you're interested in contributing to an open source project, go ahead and look through the interfaces and see where you can help out.
Sure, like I'm actually going to post on the repo, like what kind of stuff need to be done, or certain ideas that I have.
That's so exciting. Can you like tweet it when you post so I can like get on that and retweet?
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so should we continue?
Yeah, I got a couple questions real quick.
Okay.
But they're short ones, I promise. So when these, like the default values, will it actually change the URL in the browser with these default values based on this? Or is it something that's just then stored in the code so that when you access it in the code, you'll have access to it?
So when you access inside the code, you have these values if they don't exist on top of the URL, like inside the query params of the URL. So this is not going to change the URL on top. So pretty much you have your empty URL, and these are going to be the values that when you actually access them from the query param store, you're going to get. So this is the cool thing.
Cool. And then my second question is there something in the library that handles casing right now to match casing or adjust casing? So uppercase, lowercase, that sort of thing in terms of the query params, or is that not part of it?
To be honest, you mean that if I write page like this, or I'm not
Yeah,
sure
so
what you mean.
if in the URL it comes in like the other way, right? Or it comes in all caps or things like that.
Okay, so you will say we have
Is it case
something like this.
sensitive to match those?
Yeah, so no, I mean, if you want to match certain things like this, you have to write it this way here. We don't have, I haven't created something that matches this, for example. But I don't think that this is correct anyways. I mean, if you're going to have this, probably you have to write it this way here as well.
Right, but
I mean,
if my
yeah.
URL had page the way you have it in the comments, would this automatically pick it up as the same page on line 19? Will it handle that right now?
No, that's what I'm saying. That if you want this, you have to like explicitly say that it's going to be like this. And these are two different things, right? Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, perfect.
You're welcome. I love questions, so don't get I don't get worried when you're asking. So whenever you have a question, just throw it. So we're going to also have sorting. So I'm going to say sort. I'm also going to say type converter, string. I have to fix this separator. We're going to have a separator with something like this. No, not exactly. I'm going to use this one as well. We're going to have a default value of this, and we're going to have multi-true because we can sort on multiple values. So let me just put show filter. It's going to be false. So whenever you don't provide a type converter, like if you give it a value like this, it already knows that it has to be converted to a Boolean. So you don't actually need to explicitly say it. So and I'm also going to write this remove unknown because I want no other query parameters for this URL to be present. So this is the configuration for now. Now I'm just going to jump quickly and develop the resolver, the list resolver. As you see, it is an empty resolver, and I'm quickly going to change it. So first of all, I'm going to go here quickly and copy this. I don't use the default one that comes with Visual Studio Code because it messes up the imports here, and it's kind of annoying. I don't know if you tried it, but for me it doesn't work correctly, and that's why I have to go inside and kind of do it myself. So here, what are we going to do? First, I need the constructor. I need to get. Just fix it like that. So I need the user service. Come on. I guess I had too many Hyperions tonight. Okay. Private, what do we need? The query param store. Okay, and inside here, what are we going to have? So first, I'm going to create a local value that is going to be something like that. So I usually call it SPF. It comes from sort, paginate, and filter. The idea is to basically store the previous value. I'm going to these are going to be actually the pair of page size, page filter, and sort. I'm going to explain why I'm storing it a little bit later and why I actually need it. So then I'm going to say const SPF, something like that. Then I'm going to use the query param store now, and I'm going to say I want to select. And now I kind of like copied the select from the ngRx, like the API, and here you can either give it, for example, a string that you actually want to get from the query param, or you can actually give it a function. So right here, I'm going to have a function. I'm going to get the page, the filter. I'm going to get the sort, and I'm also going to get the page size that I need. And I'm just going to construct an object from this and just return it. Which is going to look something like this. Okay, let me just maybe put it so it's more visible. Okay, so what do we have to do next? I'm going to pipe it. I'm also going to return it, so I don't forget. Return this stream here. Okay, looks good. Here inside, I'm going to tap so I can listen to the values that are going to be put, SPF, something like this. Then I'm going to use a function that it's called comparer. Pretty much, this is a function that compares two objects or to anything, like all kinds of stuff, arrays, objects, and stuff like that. It pretty much checks, for example, if it's an object, it checks if the key with this value is contained in the other object and stuff like that. So it's not something very hard. So here I'm going to do if previous value is equal to the current, pretty much I want to return. Why? Because, for example, if something changes in the query params, this stream is going to emit. And even though if it's not some of these values, we don't want to trigger a reload on our users. So pretty much that's why I'm doing this here. This is tap, not top. Okay, and here I'm going to say pref SPF equals SPF, and then this dot user service load all. And here I'm going to feed it with the SPF data, these things that are going to be sent to the server. Okay, then I have to not forget to say I want the first value, because otherwise our resolver will never complete. And after that, I'm going to say map to true. You don't have to do this, but I think that it's okay for now. I'm actually not going to be using the values that are returned from the store. So what is this error that we have? Okay, this should be like this for now. Okay. So is this clear pretty much, or are there any questions? Hello.
You're creating this resolver here, and then can you show where you're actually referencing it?
Yeah, sure. Right here. So for the list, we're going to be using this resolver. Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to remind everyone where that actually is being linked up and where it's being called and when it's being used.
Yeah, so the idea is like when you enter this root, before it actually presents the component, this one here, this resolver needs to complete. So this is why it's important for us to say that we want this to complete after the first value, because otherwise, if we miss this, our component will never show. So it's really important to do this. I mean, not with first. I mean, in this case, first is okay. But if you're doing something else, you just need to complete your stream here in some way. Okay, so this is the resolver part. And the next part is going to be the last part, which is going to be our list component. So inside the list component, I just pretty much used material. We have a table, and we also have like a few filters. So pretty much we have a few values that are missing, a few handlers that we have to implement, and everything should start running. I didn't want to kind of like show how I put all of this logic and stuff, and I also want to present a more real application. So this is why I actually developed it before the show. So inside the component, let's go inside the code and see what we actually have to do. So yeah, this is something that I'll be using a little bit later. So first I have to say page size equals page size. So this is because I fit the material paginator with this page size that I have. So and pretty much is page sizes. Okay, so I just need this this constant here. I also need the displayed columns for the. Let me just quickly go to here to see. Yeah, this is the name. Okay, this is something that I need to. So I can present the data from the user. So I'm going to present the name. I'm going to present the username. I'm going to present the email and some actions that we can use. For example, this is going to be our edit button. I need is loading, which is going to be a stream. And this stream is pretty much going to be used whenever, for example, the user list is loading. We will want it to just show a spinner. So inside the constructor, I will need a few things. First, I will need the user service, like this. Okay, user service. Come on, auto completion. Why are you being so difficult tonight? Okay, is list loading. Perfect. Then what else do I need? I need the data source that I'm going to feed inside my material table. So user list data source. It's going to be a stream. I'm not going to give it a type, so I'm going to get it from the user service. From the list, like that. I'm going to pipe it. Then I'm going to filter it, because sometimes I will have a no. And after that, I'm going to say I want to map. I want to get the users. And oops, I need another. Yep, like this. And I want to say new material table data source. So I think that this was the correct thing to do, and I'm going to present. I'm going to feed it with my users. Okay. I think I need to tell what kind of user interface I'm going to be using, like this, right? Or no? Users. Okay. So yeah, everything. I hope that everything is familiar. So these are the. Let me just put this stuff like that. It's very complicated to actually write in such a small window. So what else do I need? I also need the user total user count. This is going to be needed for the pagination. So I'm going to say user list, user service, list pipe, and I'm going to get the total count, and I'm just going to return it like that. I really love RxJS, so I use it everywhere. I hope that you guys do it as well. What is my mistake though? Oh, I forgot a bracket here. Okay, perfect. Nobody's helping me.
I was about to say something, but you had it under control. So
You're so fast. No help needed.
Oh, come on. I'm like blushing here. I'm sweating and stuff.
Oh my gosh, seriously, I am amazed at how well you are doing and at how like collected and just you're doing amazing. So you should not be blushing at all. You should be like, I rock.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to need another dependency. This is going to be the QPS, the Query Params store. Okay, and now from the Query Params store, I'm going to get the selected page, which is going to be a select page size, and this is going to be this QPS.select. And now I'm going to use the page size string. I'm going to copy this. Then this is going to be the current page, and I'm going to get the page. Then I will need the current filter. This QPS.select. This is going to be the filter, and current sort.
I want to take a quick moment to point something out here too.
Sure.
The fact that you're using this Query Param store, right, has an additional benefit because now in this component, it doesn't need to make use of the router, right? So now
Yeah, you actually use it only to apply the effects by using router.navigate. This is why you only use it, what you use it for.
Right. So now in this component, if I wanted to unit test this component, I can mock out the query param store. I don't have to worry about any of the mocking that goes along with mocking out the router, right? Because there's no dependency in this component on the router.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas
So
normally, if I want to use the query params, I'm using the router service to do that. So that's
at least not at this point. What will you won't be using it for the activated route to determine what route you are currently on. But I believe what we will need it for is when you change something, that it should be reflected as part of the query params. So to re-navigate to somewhere else.
yeah, this is why you actually need to use the router. Yeah. But I was actually at a certain point thinking to maybe adding a navigate to the query param store as well, because with the router, we really experience some difficulties when we want to use to navigate with query params and stuff like that. But anyways, I think that it's not necessary for now. Plus, when you're unit testing, just adding another thing here is not so complicated. I think. I don't know. Okay, so should we continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, so pretty much I think that we have all those things done. We only need to add a few more handlers. So the handlers, the first one that I copied is page change handler. So we're just going to get the active. This is, again, I say that this is from material, so I'm not writing anything that is different. This is the direction, okay, from what I remember. The direction. Okay, so active direction. Then we're going to say this qps.select. We want to get the current sort, and we're going to pipe it. Of course, we're going to get the first value, so we don't have to care about this stream, and we're going to subscribe and get the sort. So this is going to be the current sort string, and if there isn't anything in the query params, it's going to be just the default value, which is going to be the empty string. So here I'm just going to modify it, and I created this handler. So I'm not going to go into this kind of handlers, but pretty much what it does, it modifies the string in a certain way. So I feed it with the current sort, I feed it with the current active column, and I feed it with the direction. But in certain cases, I want this thing to be eliminated from the query params. And for example, when I'm have the default ascendanting, for example, sorting, I want it to be just not shown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say if the direction is the default ASC, I want to return no, which will actually exclude the query param, this value from the query param, and otherwise I just want to feed it with the direction. As I said, I'm not going to go into this function. So if somebody is interested, just go on GitHub after the show. I'm going to post a link and you can check it out. So here is where we are actually going to do the first mutation. We're going to use the router, and then we're going to say navigate. So by using navigate, I'm going to change the query params. As you see, I'm not providing any other path, so that means that I want to keep myself in the current path. And here I'm going to say query params. I want to change the sort, and it's very important here to say query params handling merge, because I want all the other query params to persist and to change only this sort. Okay. And the other, okay, this is the page change.
Specify query params handling at all, it would just wipe it out.
Sorry?
So if you didn't specify the query params handling merge, it would just wipe out all of the query params.
Yeah, we'll wipe out all of them, and we will only put this one if the values is other than undefined.
Okay.
So whenever you provide undefined, it actually deletes it. So if I do something like this, this means that if there is a sort, it will automatically just get removed. Okay. Okay, I changed this to sort because we're actually doing the sorting. Now we have to do the page change handler. I'm going to get here the page size and the page index. And here I'm going to use directly the router to navigate. So I'm going to say this.router.navigate. And of course, I want to maintain in the same path. I want to feed it with the page size. Oh, oops, sorry, query params. Query params. Okay, page size. Page size. And also I want the page. So here we actually get the page index, so it's a little bit tricky. So if the page index is 0, I want to say undefined, so I want this thing to be removed from the query. And if it's not 0, I actually want to increment it by 1, just because the page index will be 0. It will be like one number less than the actual page that I expect, just because it's the index, and you know that arrays just start from 0. And
I mean, personally, I would start my pages at 0, but this works too.
Well, I don't know. I understand, but I don't know. In this demo, I just decided to do it this way. So I'm sorry.
No, I kid you.
So pretty much, I think that we are done. So we have our two handlers. I don't remember if we need something else for this to start working. So what we actually can do is probably try to compile it and see what we got. So here I'm going to say ngserve, and fingers crossed, hopefully I did not mess up something. And we're waiting and waiting. Okay, almost done. And that's all. So I'm going to quickly go to localhost 400. Okay, 4000. So this is something that I'll be showing a little bit later. What we want to actually do is go inside the users. So now I'm kind of like hoping that I'm fetching the users, but I think that something broke. Let's see what is the error. Could not find column with ID action, just because I put not action, actions like this. I think that this is how it should be. Yes, okay. And yay, we have loaded the users. So let's just see it again. Okay, we should be actually making a request here. I'm not sure why it's not loading. Let me refresh actually. Not sure why we're not making a request. It should be saying that we're loading the users. Okay. See, like we pretty much loaded the users for page 1. This is the URL that we actually sent to the user. So here, I kind of like forgot something. I forgot one property that is for showing the filter, I think. I'm thinking, let me just check. So my idea is to present the filter by using the query param as well. Let me just check to see if I did not mess up something. So here we have those. User list data source, okay. I'm just quickly going to zoom out a little bit, so it's going to be easier for me to find. Yeah, so we have this show filter. Please filter. Okay, maybe I have to go here. What did I mess up? Should be in the list component. Let me reload so it can index things better. And hopefully I'm going to see where the mistake is. Okay, why is it not showing? Okay, anyways, let's check to see if the sorting, no, something is not working correctly. I know what it's not working. Okay, so here inside the user routing, we forgot something very important. So when we're talking about resolvers, whenever we enter a certain route, this resolver gets executed and then it actually finishes, right? But what we actually want to configure is to say that whenever we want the query params to change or the params to change, we want this resolver to run again. So there is this option, run guards and resolvers, and pretty much you give it one of these values. I'm currently going to say I want every time the query params change, this resolver to get executed, and that means that pretty much we're going to get the new query params inside the resolver, and we're going to send the new query to the server. And yeah, everything just started working correctly now, as you see. So the show filter that we actually described in our query params, as you see, when it's with the value true, it actually presents the filter and hides it, which is really cool. The other thing that we can actually do is type something here, and you see how it actually refetched the data with the filter that we actually gave it. And we can actually delete the filter by clicking one button. And this button, what actually does, it just clears the query parameter that we have here on top. So I don't know, it's very cool.
No, this is amazing. I love it.
It's really cool. It's very useful. As you see, currently we're with page size 5, but if I change the page size, we are going to see that we are going to get more than something is not working because we're getting 0 out of 0. I'm thinking that I kind of I did something wrong here. Probably I named something that it's not supposed to be like that. Let me just quickly debug it, if you mind. You don't mind, right?
No worries. So one of the things about this too is that by using the route as the source of truth, right, you also get the advantage of now you can deep link into the app with these settings, right, with this state. So now it took that URL and opened up a new tab and went to that URL with those sort filters, right? The app would respond and load up with that data. Whereas if we didn't have it in the URL, you'd have to have some other type of way to rehydrate state. So that's another benefit of leveraging the route as your source of truth and the query params as your state.
Rehydrate state. I've never heard that one. I love it.
The other thing is that not only does it help you with your debugging, but it also helps users of your application to share a URL. So if I were to be looking at this list and I happen to filter it or sort it or whatever, share my link, because the values and the sort parameters and the filtering parameters are now part of the URL, I can share that information as well so that people are looking at the same thing when they load the same URL.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the things that our customers really like, is that we actually they can share the URLs and the application is exactly in the same state that it was before. And you can actually see this by doing this. Oops, I didn't have to do this. I wanted to actually put a proper filter there. So if you do this and basically click here, if you refresh the page, you end up exactly there. So that's what I'm actually talking about, deterministic user interfaces, because when you load the application, is exactly in the state that it was before. So yeah, this is the cool thing.
It eliminates that works on my machine, right? So now it's the same in everybody's machine.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed a few bugs here. For example, I'm not sure why here is showing 5 and we're actually showing 10 users. I think that I have some kind of a bug inside my source code, but I suggest that we just continue with the other stuff, and if you want, I can later debug it, or if you want, I can actually debug it right now to try to see where the problem is, or we should continue.
We're actually at the top of the hour, so we got to end. So maybe we need to plan another episode and we can follow up on that. We could do that.
Okay, so yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm going to quickly show you the other stuff and we can actually end. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that real quick.
So okay, so here inside the home, as you see, we have different like slide panels. And for example, here we're using something called like how do I call it, like binary boolean. So pretty much here, this value, it represents it is like a number, but we like the query param store converts it to a binary number, and depending on the 0 and 1s that we have, we actually open and close these dialogues here. So this is pretty useful because, of course, it persists the states, as you see. Like whenever we refresh the page, we actually have the same data, which is really cool. And here I developed really quickly a simple wizard that is something that is very like something that we develop a lot in our applications. And for example, here what I do is actually put everything inside the query params. And depending on these query params, actually, I disable the buttons. And yeah, I can do a lot of things. As you see, I select the country, and I can proceed forward. I can select the dates. I put it here. I refresh the page. I have the exactly same the same state. So yeah, this is the general idea of this library.
Okay, I have to ask one question on that though. There's a limit on the length of the URL, right? It's pretty large, but
yeah.
Oh my God, is it really? I never reached it.
What?
I said I didn't know there was a limit. It's awesome.
No, there is actually a limit, yeah, but I think that it is really large. We actually never had a case where we put so many stuff in the query parameters, but I have like thought of certain like ways that we can actually kind of limit the space. For example, eliminating those kind of stuff and maybe putting some kind of a separator, and just based on the position of the data on the UI, you can actually save the data or something like that, or maybe some kind of minimization algorithm for the text or something like that, so it can be actually smaller. But these are certain things that we never had a case, and I just never had time to actually sit down and develop. So
you actually did solve it in some way with the previous one where we talked about the binary value, right? And you're like, I had to wrap up some descriptive state information into a small value, and that's the way you solved it, right? Is that so? That's another process somebody could do, regardless of whether the library does it or not. We could take on and say, okay, how could we serialize our state data into a value that can go up in that query param, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is something kind of minimization that is really cool, and we actually use this, so that's why I had to like put it inside the library, because we have a lot of expansion windows like this one, and we want them to be persistent. So yeah, but maybe I should stop sharing my screen now and just show myself. So like this eliminates a lot of code. Pretty much, we don't write reducers, we don't write selectors, we don't write action creators, actions. Like this is something that I was really getting annoyed with. For example, if I need to show a dialogue, if I'm going to be using ngAir, I have to write so much stuff, and with the query params, it's just so easy, so fast, very elegant.
So you're suggesting that we query param all the things?
No. We, for example, query only the state, for example, some IDs and stuff like that, that it's like just certain stuff that the UI is dependent on. All the other stuff, we put them in the ngAir because ngAir is amazing.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm excited to check it out more, and I can see many uses of it. So would love to use it. It's very cool.
I'm going to push the whole application that I developed, and yeah, you can check it out. You can play around, and like if you think that it's going to be useful or just add something, just do it. Totally up to it.
Awesome. Well, let's see if we have any quick picks, and then we'll call it a show. Mike or Alyssa, do you have anything that you want to shout out about? Mike's muted. Maybe he's
talking. It was a great pick, but no, I'll be the only one that knows about it. No, I have a few picks. One, just because of some challenges I've been facing at work, I will just say a little PSA. to be diligent about your dependencies. So if you're adding a dependency to your application, think about it critically, whether or not what value it adds and complexities it adds, what problem it's trying to solve, but just be thoughtful as you add dependencies to your applications. My other pick is actually Justin is my pick. He's confused.
Not me. Some other Justin?
No, I enjoy talking with Justin on Angular and other places as well. So my pick again is NGBS. We'll be streaming tonight as Justin and I are going to be talking about animations. And not only that, but Justin and I will be speaking together at NG Atlanta in February. So looking forward to both of those.
All right. Well, I was going to pick you, so I guess that covers it. Alyssa, do you have any picks? Maybe not. All right. Okay, Iliya, thanks a ton for coming on, sharing the content. Really appreciate it. This stuff is awesome. So super appreciate your time and sharing this stuff with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys.
Hey, do you have any picks?
Any picks, Elisa?
Yeah, actually. So nerdy, it was going to be Iliya. And it's because I needed help. I needed somebody to do a talk at DevReach, my company's throwing in Sofia. And he is so gallant and amazing and so smart. Like, oh my gosh. So thank you so much for doing that. And I look forward to watching the recording of it. And thank you for being on air, like on Angular Air. You're blowing my mind, man. Thank you.
I'm starting to blush. Well, thank you, guys. It was really a pleasure. I always wanted to be on Angular Air, so I hope that I can be some other time, maybe as a panelist or something. So it's going to be really cool.
For sure. We'd love to have you for sure. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. That's a wrap. Everyone have a good one. We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.